What if I told you that long before Columbus, a group of Romans, or maybe even early Christians, had established a settlement right here in North America? It sounds like a plot from a blockbuster movie, but a controversial discovery from 1924 might just hold the key to this incredible story. Get ready, because today we're diving deep into the mystery of the Tucson lead artifacts. It all started near Silverbell Road in Tucson, Arizona. A man named Charles E. Manier and his family were out for a walk when they stumbled upon something truly bizarre buried in the desert soil. It was a heavy lead cross nearly 2 feet long, made of 2 pieces riveted together. But that was just the beginning. Over the next few years, a total of 32 lead artifacts were unearthed from the same area. We're talking about swords, crosses, batons, and other ceremonial objects, all covered in strange inscriptions and symbols. These weren't just random scribbles. The inscriptions were in Latin, and they told a story of a group of people led by someone named Theodorus, who sailed from Rome and established a settlement called Calalus. The most shocking part? The artifacts were dated. One inscription reads AD 800, another AD 900. If authentic, this would completely upend our understanding of pre-Columbian America. It would mean a European colony existed in what is now Arizona over 500 years before Columbus even set sail. As you can imagine, the academic world was immediately skeptical. The prevailing view was that it was an elaborate hoax. The use of AD for Anno Domini was pointed out as an anachronism, as historians believed its use wasn't widespread until after the year 1000. Latin was also considered a bit strange, with some unusual phrasing. For decades, the Tucson artifacts were dismissed and largely forgotten, relegated to the dusty shelves of a museum basement. But the story doesn't end there. Fast forward to the 21st century, and a forensic geologist named Scott Wolter decided to take a fresh look. Wolter is known for his work on other controversial historical artifacts, like the Kensington runestone. He wasn't interested in the historical debates. He wanted to look at the objects themselves, using modern science. One of the first things he examined was the ground where the artifacts were found. They were buried in a layer of caliche, which is a natural cement that forms in desert soils over very long periods. Geologists know that caliche forms incredibly slowly, maybe a centimeter every 1,000 years. The artifacts were embedded deep within this rock-hard layer, suggesting they had been there for a very, very long time. Wolter argued that faking this would be almost impossible. You couldn't just dig a hole, plant the artifacts, and have this dense caliche form around them in a few years. Next, Wolter and his team took microscopic samples from the artifacts. What they found was fascinating. The lid was heavily oxidized, as you'd expect from something buried for centuries. But more importantly, they found mineral growths like malachite and azurite on the surface. These minerals grow incredibly slowly, and their presence was a strong indicator of old age. They also analyzed the composition of the lead itself. It was a type of lead that was common in ancient Roman mines, further linking the artifacts to the Old World. Then there's the wax. Some of the artifacts were hollow and contained a black waxy substance. When analyzed, this was identified as beeswax, mixed with other materials. Beeswax is an organic material, which means it can be carbon dated. The results of the carbon dating were stunning. The dates came back pointing to the 8th or 9th century, perfectly aligning with the inscriptions on the artifacts themselves. For supporters of the artifact's authenticity, this was the smoking gun. Let's talk about those inscriptions again. They weave a tale of conflict and faith. The crosses are inscribed with names, prayers, and warnings. They talk about being smitten by the Toltecs, which many interpret as the Toltecs, a known Mesoamerican civilization. The symbols are a mix of Christian iconography, like crosses and chi rose, alongside what appear to be Jewish symbols and even Masonic-like emblems. It's a fascinating blend of cultures and beliefs. One of the most intriguing symbols is the Cross of Lorraine, a 2-barred cross that appears on some of the artifacts. This symbol is famously associated with the Knights Templar, the medieval military order. The Templars weren't officially formed until the 12th century, a few hundred years after the dates on the artifacts. However, Wolter and others suggest that the group in Arizona could have been a precursor to the Templars, a group of warrior monks with similar beliefs who fled persecution in Europe and sought refuge in a new land. This would explain the military-style swords and the religious nature of the objects. So, who were these people? The artifacts refer to them as Romans from the city of Roma. They were led by Theodorus, and the community was named Calalus. They seem to be a religious group, possibly a sect of early Christians, who were under constant threat from local populations. The inscriptions paint a grim picture of their final days, a struggle for survival against overwhelming odds. The artifacts in this view were a time capsule, a final testament buried in the hope that someone someday would find them and learn their story. Of course, the debate is far from over. Mainstream archaeology remains largely unconvinced. Critics argue that the hoaxer could have been incredibly clever, using old lead and crafting a story just plausible enough to be tantalizing. They point to the unusual mix of languages and symbols as evidence of a modern fabrication, a hodgepodge of historical themes. They argue that if a colony of hundreds of people existed for over a century, there should be more evidence, ruins, graves, pottery, not just a single cache of lead objects. It's a fair point. The lack of broader archaeological evidence is the biggest hurdle for the authenticity argument. Where are the remains of their settlement? Where are their bones? Until more evidence is found, the Tucson artifacts will likely remain in this historical limbo, caught between being a paradigm-shifting discovery and a masterful fraud. But what if they are real? The implications are staggering. It would mean that the history of European presence in the Americas didn't start with Vikings in the north or Columbus in the south, but with a lost Roman Christian colony in the heart of the American Southwest. It would force us to rethink everything we know about the so-called Dark Ages and the capabilities of ancient seafarers. It suggests that the history we learn in school might just be one version of the story, with countless other chapters lost to time, waiting to be rediscovered. The Tucson lead artifacts challenge us to question the narratives we take for granted. Are they proof of a forgotten chapter of American history? A testament to a brave group of explorers who vanished into the desert? Or are they just a clever deception, a historical prank that has lasted for a century? The truth is, we still don't know for sure. But it's a powerful reminder that history is not always set in stone, or in this case, lid. It's a living, breathing mystery that continues to unfold. What do you think? Are these artifacts the real deal or a brilliant hoax? Let me know your theories down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think about this incredible story. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into a controversial past, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. See you next time.